What's up, Shepherd's Light Ministry? How's it going? Guess what? We're almost done with the fast. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're done. This is Tuesday, the 19th. So it's day 19. Y'all excited? Who's excited? I'm excited. Comment below and let me know. What are you eating when you break the fast if you're not here? We have some fruits and vegetables. If you want anything else, you're on your own because you shouldn't be eating anything else. Fruits and veggies, baby food. Unless you've been doing the 6 to 6, you kind of can eat whatever. But if you're doing the actual 21 days liquid fast, fruits, veggies, that's it. Sorry. And take as long as you can to get out of it. We usually eat fruits and vegetables for a good 3 days before we incorporate anything else. And then we go to potatoes. And then from potatoes, we start meat and bread. We try to hold off as long as we can. Same with dairy. No dairy. We hold that off as long as we possibly can. That's a personal option. I would say if you did incorporate bread or dairy, wait a week or 2 before you do it. Because same with bananas. Do not eat bananas. All these things actually can bind your system up. And you need to get your system going again. And you don't want it to shut it down. You want to get your system going. So that's why you hold off. Get that system going. Go as much as you can. Get it going. Rev it up. It's when your immune system's getting boosted. It's amazing how God works. But with that being said, let's get on to today, 19. We are reading the book of Philemon, which I put Philippians on the thing today. No clue how I did that, but I did it. I thought I had it. I looked over it so many times and I found a few mistakes. It was a lot of work, but guess what? I found some of the bugs this year. So next year, it'll be better. That's good. Hopefully there'll be no mistakes, but it happens. Even when you look something over 10 times, it still happens, but it's okay. I hope the study guide has helped you. Today, actually, we are reading the book of Philemon to Hebrews 10. Hebrews is the book of faith, which is awesome. And, remember, fasting gives you a breakthrough, which, how do you get a breakthrough? Having faith, too. It builds your faith, fasting. It's all going together. So, breakthrough, here it comes. A true fast is honor God in all things, right? All things. Everything we do, it's honoring Him. It also will cause us to ride on high hills on the earth. I want to touch on this just a little bit because what's that mean? What does that mean? To ride on high hills of the earth. Well, I'm going to tell you what it means. It means that this is a promise from God to elevate you to places of authority during your lifetime. Might not happen now, but it'll happen during your lifetime. You will stand before men and women of influence. God will use you to have an impact on people's lives. I almost couldn't spit that out. I'm sorry. I had to take a minute and say it over again. Sorry. I don't know why I shouldn't have fasting brain today, but it's there. So this here, what does it mean? You're going to stand before men. This is something we've been declaring with declarations. If you've been here on Mondays, we've been declaring this. We declared it all week last week. We learned about declarations. We declared it. I did a video. If you need to go back and watch the video so you can declare stuff over your life more than just that week. Declare it over your life. Things are going to happen. Declare it. So hopefully you spent the whole week last week declaring it, and hopefully you were here at prayer. If you want to be a leader, if you want to excel in the Lord, if you want to draw closer to Him, you need to make it a point to be saying these declarations. You need to make it a point to fast. You need to make it a point to pray. You need to make it a point to give, because it's not an option. According to God's word, he says, when you fast, when you pray, when you give, it's not an option. God expects it out of us. But the thing is, where there's an if, there's always a blessing. So there's so much that comes with this. Like, he blesses us during this time. This is a prime example. He blesses us. Why? Because we are doing what he asks us to do. We are praying, we are fasting, we're giving, right? But when you give, you need to give out of a loving, cheerful heart, not out of another motive. It has to be from a giving heart. This time also during this time with fasting and praying, which I'm going to be honest with you, there was not as many people at prayer as there should have been. Like, this whole entire church should have made sure they were here every Monday, at least for a few times, for an hour, half hour, whatever. Some were, bless you, the Lord's going to bless you, but you have to be praying during this time. If you're not praying, it, one, makes your fast harder. Two, you're like giving up blessings that you could receive. And three, this was an opportunity for Pastor Rick and I to help you learn how to pray. You need to know how to pray. And it's something that's lacking, not just in this church, but most churches. People do not pray. I'm going to be honest with you. Wednesday, I'm preaching. We're praying. Don't come unless you're going to pray out loud. Just facts. Because we are praying out loud. And part of what we're doing, you are going to need to pray out loud. And if you don't, you're not going to reap the harvest, but you're also going to hinder those that are here who are doing the praying. So if you're not going to pray out loud, just stay home. Please do us all a favor. I'm not being mean with that, but this is a time to make sure those who are here in the building get what they need out of the teaching. So it's going to be phenomenal. There is going to be huge breakthrough. We are going to surrender things that in a way that you've never done in your life. But you need to be willing to pray. You got to be here. It's just like God gave this to me yesterday. And it's funny because the week before he gave me the message for Wednesday, this Monday, he also gave me the message. And when he gave it to me and downloaded it, I was like, oh God, you're amazing. I'm like, these people need this. And he also laid it on my heart, but they need to participate. And if they're not participating, they're hindering the others. So make sure they participate. Make sure you're here. Make sure you participate. So important. Because this is a time, like, remember, we are sensitive to our spirit. We can hear from God. He's speaking to us and he's moving in our life. And if you want him to move in your life like never before, you gotta be willing to press in. You gotta be willing to do things according to his word. And that's what we've been trying to work on and focus during this fast, is all of you pressing in and doing things according to his word, his purpose, his plan. We're trying to build you up. God's raising an army. And in order to raise that army, we all need to be participating. So please come with a willing heart and be willing to participate. This is a time like that he's moving mountains in our lives, but also others. Remember, we're the repairer of the breach, which is filling in the gap and interceding. And I was reading Philemon today, and I don't want to misconstrue this, so don't take it the wrong way, because this is really it's not exactly what this is about, but I had revelation in another area reading this. So I'm just going to focus. I'm going to explain that to you, but don't think, okay, this is what Philemon means, because it really doesn't. Philemon is actually another letter that Paul wrote when he was in his first time he was in prison. And Philemon came, and he ran away because he was a slave, right? How many of us are slaves to sin? We run away, right? We're slaves to sin. And so many people stay there in their sins, and they're okay with it. They just stay there. He was a slave, and he ran away. And Paul found him, and Paul brought him to Jesus and saved him, right? He saved him. And he was like, hey, and saved him, built him up, and was like, but you owe this debt. You still owe the person you were working for. You need to go back and do it. And when I was reading this, there's a whole other concept to this. But when I was reading this, it reminded me of something that happened this summer to us. And this is not, trust me, this is not what this means, because it's totally different. And, but anyways, sometimes we have debt that we need to go back and fix so that we can be right with God. It's basically what this is saying. What came to revelation to me is there are certain times that things come to us that we think it's a blessing, but in true reality, it's not a blessing. So when this happened, Paul was probably like, okay, this is a blessing. Like, I could see this in his head, being a pastor. And it just reminded me of something, okay? So he's probably like, in his head, he's probably like, okay, this is a blessing. I have somebody to help me, and this is going to work out, and it'll be good. Like, I'm just putting words in Paul's mouth, using this story as a scenario of things that I see in ministry and in my life. But he could be like, oh, this is great. I have a helper. He can go with me, da, 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 da. But then really, that blessing wasn't a full blessing, because he owed a debt and he had to go back. And so even though Paul did right and it was a blessing, at the same time, like, Paul had to say, like, I can't keep you here, because even though you're a blessing, you're also a curse at the same time. Like, I can't afford the risk to have you with me because you owe this debt. And it's kind of something that happened to us that I was reminded of this summer. Actually, it happened twice, but this summer, actually this spring and this summer, the church had to refuse a blessing. This spring, someone actually was looking to purchase a van for us, and they looked into it, and they're like, I don't think this is going to work. They're like, we looked into it, and the insurance cost is just crazy. Is the ministry able to afford this? Is it in the budget? No, it's not in the budget. The other thing they looked into is the regulations to drive people around. And they said, you don't have anybody to drive this van that I'm going to get. And we're like, no. And then this summer, someone actually was giving the church a van, and we had to say, we're sorry, we can't accept it. The reason we said this is because when we evaluated things, there's nobody in the church that's able to drive it besides Pastor Rick and I. The issue is you have to have 2 or 3 people on each van. Pastor Rick and I both are the only two people that were capable at the time still of picking people up and dropping them off. We both can't not be here before and after church. We realized it was giving us more work than it was actually helping the ministry. So we had to kindly refuse and say, I'm sorry, give it to another church or sell it, do whatever. We couldn't accept it. Then a few weeks later, we realized that it was a good reason we didn't take it, because we were downtown at an event and we saw 2 people there that actually were complaining that we don't pick people up. And they were down at this event and they walked down there. They walked past the church to go to an event, but they can't walk to the church. Why? What's more important to you? And that's when we decided that not only was it a blessing that we said, no, we're not responsible for other people's things. It would have just given us more work. And it would have gave, and this way, not having, because there was another pastor that actually, or he is not a pastor, I'm sorry. Someone from another church that actually said they got rid of their van. And when they did it, it was a blessing because they got people that actually took their walk serious. Because those that they were picking up were just causing problems within the church, which we discovered through youth. It was the same thing. That if we weren't picking the youth up, they wouldn't have been here. So that's when we decided to pretty much stop picking people up. Now, under a few circumstances, we will. There's people who has been physically unable to drive or that just need, sometimes, we make exceptions, but most of the time we don't pick people up. It's like, we just don't do it. You're responsible for your own walk. I am not responsible for your walk. That's number one. Number two, when we evaluated that, the monthly cost to have that van would have been a burden on the ministry. The insurance is through the roof. And that's why the first person didn't purchase it for us. Then also our church insurance goes up. It doubles. Then whoever's driving that van also has to have a special insurance. Even riding or driving has to have a special insurance on their car insurance, which would have bumped up our car insurance also. It would have been, it's kind of like this. Like Paul with, what was his name? Omnius. He would have been, it's more of a burden because he had a debt. Taking that van and receiving it would have been a burden because it would have cost us more than it would have did good at this point. Now, if everybody like tithes and gives and that when the time's right, and we will be able to purchase it ourselves. But Pastor Rick and I discussed this in December. We won't be taking gifts. We ended them. And we announced it at the church. And part of the reason why is because people give gifts. And sometimes there's witchcraft attached to them. Other times it's just because their heart's not right. See, when you give something like that, and I'm going to use this as an example. Someone gave an ice maker to us. We're not using it. But anyways, they gave it to us. Pastor Rick really wanted it. They did it with no strings attached. This was a non-believer. It's okay. They gave it to us. That's one thing. But when you give something like the ice maker, that's in addition to your tithe. Like you should be tithing your 10%. And when you give something like an ice maker, a vehicle, clothes, food, anything to the church, that's not a tithe. That is an offering. So you don't get the benefits from tithing. You don't even get the benefits from the offer because you didn't tithe. You just gave something to the church. It serves you no purpose. God's good and gracious, and he may see where your heart's at and bless you some, but you really don't receive the true blessing, the full blessing, unless you tithe and then give that in addition. I know it's complicated, but that's how it works. God expects us to tithe. And he expects us to do it with a gracious heart. And if you tithe, the church is taken care of and can do these things on their own, and they don't need anybody to give those items to them. Now, there are some that are very financially off. We see it at Pastor Rodney's, and they do tithe, and then they do give things like cars and that. It's total different thing. But until you're to that point, you should not be giving gifts to the church until you're able to tithe and give a gift. It's just facts. So, but this here was an eye opener, and this reminded me of that, how we had to say no to that blessing twice, because it would not have benefited us. It was more work and more money than we are in a position right now to have. Because unfortunately, the criteria for people to drive and ride on those vans is crazy insane when we looked into it. Crazy. That we're like, okay, everyone gets to the doctors, they get to the parade, they get to these events, then they can get to church. There's a kid here that comes quite a bit of ways and gets here on his own every Sunday. On his own. If he can do it, so can adults. And if you can't, you're not taking your walk seriously. I'm sorry. It's just like Monday prayer. Everyone should have been here. Anyone that wants to be part of leadership should have been here. Anybody that wants to accelerate their walk with God should have been here. We had people here that don't even come to the church. And guess what? The power of God hit them last night in an incredible way. And this is the thing. I was praying over them, and I could actually feel the fire of God. More like their fire was stronger than a lot of people in this church. Why? They've been reading their Bible and trying to fast as much as they can, even though they're not here. And they've been watching online off and on. And they step into this building and their fire is stronger than most people who come to this building. Where's your heart at? Is it right? Is it right with the Lord? Because that's where it needs to be. People are giving, people are saying things, but where's your heart? This is your time to be giving, praying, and while you're fasting. The three of them together is so unbelievable. And this week, remember, we can intercede. And this is another thing that I saw, and I was reminded when I was reading Philemon, is that this is a time for souls to be saved, right? We're interceding. We're in the gap, which was day 16, right? Day 16, we're a breacher. We're in the gap. We're interceding for others. As you're interceding for others this week, as you give something. Even if you're online, give something, a seed, for one of your family members. Give a seed. And give some, like, don't just give a normal seed. Give a seed. And put their name on it for them, for their salvation. Because this is a time to intercede. Souls shall be saved. All right. Love y'all. Have a blessed day. I'll see you later. Keep fasting. Hang in there. We're almost done. And read your word. Love you.